I don't know why Land Rover 30 years ago didn't think ahead on that one, that some guy in Iowa may be stuffing a General Motors 6-speed automatic in a Defender. Shame on them. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. Today we're back on the LS3 Defender. And you can kind of see here, we have some fancy new parts. A little bit here, there's a windshield frame. But we also got this guy, our painless wiring harness. This is a 26 circuit off-road weatherproof. Being this guy is far from stock, we figured we'd just make our own harness. No sense in keeping the Land Rover one. We have a GM Performance LS3 backed by a 6-speed automatic. Made it to the LT230. So we'll tie this guy in for the chassis with the standalone harness that comes with the engine. That's nice. First, let's tackle a fuel setup for this guy. We're gonna use the factory fuel tank, but we have some things we need to do to it for it to support that 430 horsepower V8. So we got this guy emptied out. Don't know how long that diesel has been in the tank. So we're gonna use that guy for some fire starting, I guess. We don't need to run it in anything and screw anything up. We gotta clean this tank up. So what our plans are is we're gonna put a new fuel sender in. We'll use the factory style fuel sender, but we're gonna have to modify this side. We're gonna cut this out, and we got a fancy new fuel pump for that old LS3, and we'll make it work here. So we'll still have the factory tank, factory location, but more power. There's always got to be that one that just doesn't want to come out. This guy we're going to reuse. Well, not this one, but a new one of these we're going to reuse. So we'll keep the factory fuel fill, so this won't get touched there. As you can see, I have my really nice gloves on. Bought 2 new pairs and can't figure out where I put them. You ever have one of those days where you're just not quite in it? That's today. So we're doing old gloves. I'll stumble across the other ones sometime, I'm sure. We have this nice little Holley Fuel pump assembly. Isn't that pretty? Little billet aluminum top, nice 340 liters per hour pump. Plenty for that LS3. That's gonna go in here. So we need to do a little trimming. I love new parts like this. This guy is adjustable height, so we'll be able to set it to the right depth for that tank. We're gonna make a flange for the top that this guy's gonna bolt onto. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take some sheet metal and cut a little square. We're gonna cut out this area, lay this over top. We're gonna block this guy off because the LS is returnless, so we don't need to return back into the tank. We'll have our bolt pattern for the flange and a hole cut out so we can ramrod this guy down in there. We're gonna drop all this into the factory sump area. It's got a little catch sump to keep the fuel at the fuel pump. Show you that once we get this cut out and we can actually see in there. Alright, so we got the original fuel pump feed cut out of there. There's what is going to replace it. This guy will sit underneath this on the inside of the tank. It'll sandwich this with the fuel pump hanger, and that will be how that mounts. So we're also going to cover up the return line. A 2-for-1 special. But I mentioned earlier that the tank has a little like sump area, and that is where we're going to try and drop the fuel pump right in down to the factory sump. That'll keep the fuel pump nice and fed, even in hard cornering. I mean, maybe some off-camber stuff when it's on the trail, You never know, maybe racetrack, probably not. Before we weld up the tank, we have some Ferrari parts that we need to weld up. Got a little crack, so we'll get those fixed. And then the Defender tank. So we got the, stop rocking. So we got our new flange welded back on, hole blocked, flushed it all back out. We also set the depth on the fuel pump. Almost has to max out the length available on this particular Holley hanger, but she works swell. Like I said, this is a returnless style setup. Regulator is right there. And we'll get this guy bolted on, then we'll kind of go through the plumbing for this. So we have the fuel tank roughly back in its factory location. We are waiting on some of the structural bits coming from England. They must be on the slow boat across the pond, but that's all right. We're coming out of this guy with a 90-degree, and we are using -6AN push lock fittings with some push lock ethanol rated hose. We also have this nifty little inline fuel filter that will get mounted somewhere between here and the fuel rail up there. So hose, fuel filter, more hose up to this guy here. This is our little adapter to the factory rail. Pretty slick, goes to -6AN and the push lock hose fitting. So being this is returnless, this is going to be a pretty simple setup. Every once in a while we like simple around here, so that is good. Might also caught we have a little bit of modification in process to the transmission tunnel. The 6-speed auto from GM does not fit. I don't know why Land Rover 30 years ago didn't think ahead on that one, that some guy in 2022 in the United States, in Iowa, may be stuffing a General Motors 6-speed automatic in a Defender. Shame on them. So I suppose we have to do the modifications and make it work, since they didn't have the foresight to make it easy on me. So I think that's all gonna work out pretty nicely. This thing also has a separate fill cap if need be, but we're gonna utilize the factory one into the rear tub. But just got a phone call and all the sandblast parts are ready to go. So I think we should pick them up. So we made it down here to Barter Town, and this is where we took all the body bits down to get sandblasted. These guys down here do a nice job, and they use this little dustless blaster setup. I mean, not really little. It's on a trailer, it's mobile. They could have came to us, but it was quicker for us to haul everything down to them because this spring has been terrible. And I mean terrible weather-wise. So bunch of rain, bunch of wind. Would have been unpredictable lining up a day for them to come up and do the blasting. So we let them do it on their time. Got it done in a fairly quick fashion, all things considered, with the weather implications. I mean, it's kind of like Land Rover home country weather around here lately. I don't know, maybe we bought too many of these guys and we're bringing the English rain with us. But let's get these guys loaded back up and we'll get them checked out a little closer when we get back to the shop. So we're back here at the shop, and right here is the steel parts we had done. This is the TJM bumper for the G4, along with a rear bumper, and then we also had a spare ARB D2 bumper. So we figured we'd get those all cleaned up at the same point. Those will get re-powder coated. We'll be all freshy for the G4 Challenge rig someday soon. Head gaskets, and then we're trying to get paint lined up for that. And over here is some of our Defender bits. We had them dust the inside of the fenders that we cleaned up before. We have the top corners done. No major surprises after getting blasted. And these guys did a nice job being gentle on the aluminum. And that is what we were concerned about. The normal guys we use for sandblasting on our steel parts, we're worried about doing some damage and warp and pitting and everything, and we didn't want that to happen. That's the main reason why we took care of getting the top done ourselves on those guys with that little burnisher. These guys right here are the most susceptible to getting damage. It's nice and thin without a bunch of structure. The tub has a little more structure built in, a little more bracing, so not quite as concerned about that, but still did not want it to be pitted up and create a bunch of work. And surprisingly, all the supports were actually in great shape. I thought we were gonna have to replace a couple of these, but those look to be good. We're just going to repair what we already saw before getting this cleaned up, and that's just this front panel there, both sides. So we'll get some stuff cut out for that and get that back to the way it's supposed to be. While we were having those done out of town, we got our front wheel wells done in town. One side is mighty nice, no worries there. Other side, we got some repairs to do. On another note, also found my glove collection. There's the new ones. Why not? Put them somewhere where I've never put them before. Makes perfect sense. So we got the replacement piece roughly formed to shape. On this guy, it'll have a little bit of tweaking left to do when we go to weld it, but all we're going to do is take our marker and trace that guy out. So there is the lower patch panel all cut, fit, and welded in. We'll get the flap disc out, smooth that guy out. After some hammering, smoothing, and some paint, you'll never know that was there. That one was really bothering Ted. It's been on there since we got it. I kind of like the red zip tie. Just enough ceiling height. Starting to look like something, kind of. Don't know what that something is, but. We got a little hammering to do to make everything all perfect, but she's way less chooched than she was before, so the wheel liner is in good shape. Just excited to have some panels back on this guy. All right, so being we have our body panels back, just wanted to set them on up front and make sure we were decent on clearance of everything, and it looks like we have miles of room. The ichrometers worked out well, and everything's gonna fit. Plenty of room up top here with the hood. We'll have good space to do something nice for the intake, and nothing will be cramped, and that's what we were going for on this guy. It's working out well. And we threw on the windshield frame just to see how short I am. I'm short, much shorter than the Defender. It is going to be a pretty big boy. Currently, this guy is sitting on an Old Man Emu 2-inch lift kit. Depending what we're doing tire-wise, it'll probably get like a 33-inch tire, maybe a 35, but it'll probably get a 33-inch tire. So there is a shot this may go back down to standard height springs, but we'll make that determination once we get everything on, everything settled, and see where it all sits. I mean, I like it this tall, but it'll have a little bit bigger wheel and tire on there, and then obviously it's missing the flares, so it looks a little wonky there because the flare will come down about there and make it look a little more correct. But it's kind of an exciting day to be setting stuff back on there and remember that it is actually a vehicle. It kind of gets a little monotonous when you're just looking at a chassis and not feeling like you make a whole lot of progress, but that's the way she goes. We're just waiting on our parts from the old UK. Then we should be able to hammer on this guy, get everything mocked up, paint some stuff off. We got some leather samples coming. Those should be here next week. Then we can start picking interior. That's going to be fun as well. We're going to start with that painless harness next week, integrated into the GM harness for the LS3. We also have some pistons, and Mick from Mad Ford Engineering has located pretty much the rest of the stuff we need to get this 2.6 for Nada number 59 back together. That's exciting. So we have the Defender with the big old V8, and we have the Series with a little 6-cylinder. See anything in there you like, Sasha? That's pretty nifty, isn't it? Going to work well? Yep. It's 5 o'clock, so Sasha is wanting to go home. You got your 8-hour day in. You don't like being a working dog anymore, do you? She's like, not when it's 90 degrees out. She wants to go lay in the AC.